Scooby Doo, where are you? That simple question went on to be one of the longest running franchises ever. Starting in 1969 by Hanna-Barbera, Scooby Doo has gone on to have 13 shows, more than 30 straight-to-video films, and 2 live-action theatrical features. It's an example of how a simple idea can go such a long way. Scooby Doo is one of those franchises that everyone has fond memories of. Whether you grew up with the original series or one of the sequels like I did, there is always a version that you can find and enjoy. I think I grew up right at the perfect time to get a really good grasp on this franchise. The straight-to-DVD movies were coming out on a yearly basis, Cartoon Network was always running different versions of the series, What's New Scooby Doo was still airing, and of course the live-action movie had just gotten released. Safe to say, I think I've seen every episode of almost all of the series. So when I heard Warner Bros. Is making a new animated movie, I was really excited. Then, when they announced that it would be the launching pad for an entire universe of movies based on Hanna-Barbera cartoons, my hype level went through the freaking roof. For those unaware, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera are responsible for making some of the greatest and most iconic cartoons of all time. Tom and Jerry, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Yogi Bear, and countless more. I was lucky enough to have grown up with Boomerang, which played all of these shows all the time. The possibilities are literally endless with what they could do with this. Let's dig into this thing to see how they did. Scoob is the retelling of the origins of Mystery Inc., specifically how Shaggy met Scooby, and from there how they met the rest of the gang. The story gets bigger and bigger, with the gang meeting more characters, visiting more locations, and trying to stop the end of the world. So, this is nothing new for the Mystery Gang. There have been tons of series where they faced world-ending threats, same goes with different stories telling their origin. The problem with this film is that it loses focus of what it's supposed to be way too quickly. I kid you not, the actual origin segment, which is basically a pup named Scooby Doo, takes all of 10 minutes. From all the trailers and promotional material, that is almost all they show, and it really feels like a rushed, condensed version of what should have been focused on more. It's like the creators really wanted to make a fun, traditional Scooby-Doo movie, but the studio made them shove like 50 characters and Hanna-Barbera references in at the last second. The movie actually gets so lost that they've all but forgot the damn mystery. How do you forget a mystery in a Scooby-Doo movie? It's like making a Superman movie where he murders... It's like having a Mario game where he can't jump. It's pretty essential to the formula. They're called Mystery Inc. That's what they do. In my opinion, they failed miserably at being a Scooby-Doo movie. You don't even have a damn mystery! Ugh. I mean, even if you failed at that, maybe there's some hope with the characters. I mean, they're all really simple, and you have to intentionally go out of your way to mess them up. We have the Blue Falcon, Dynamite, and Dee Dee, played by Mark Wahlberg, Ken Jeong, and Kiersey Clemons. The whole Falcon crew plays a really big part in the film, in some ways even more than the Mystery Gang, which is fine if you're a fan of these characters, but if you're not familiar with them like me,
gonna have a bad time.
While I had no problems with Dee Dee or Dynamite, both of them probably being the best characters in the film, I had a huge problem with the Blue Falcon. Now they do give an explanation for why he acts the way he does, but it's really no excuse to make him a literal jackass. He honestly encapsulates the biggest problem I have with this film, dilly-dallying around the point and focusing more on important things. He's supposed to be a superhero, and he comes off as a waste of space until the very end of the movie. Even after he has his big hero moment, it doesn't feel earned, or it doesn't even feel like he redeemed himself for the previous hour of idiocy. It really feels like they told Mark Wahlberg to be John from Ted. As stated before, I don't know how this character is supposed to act, but I'm 1000% sure he does not act like this. Then you have our villain from the film, Dick Dastardly, played by Jason Isaacs. Dastardly is one of those villains that isn't really that hard to get. He's very simple-minded and makes machines do his bidding. The film does a good job at making him funny, but a terrible job in making him a competent threat. There are way too many times where he could have just killed the heroes but decides not to. He's just a buffoon. While he works at getting a cheap laugh every once in a while, it doesn't change the fact that he is a terrible villain. I'll be honest, this is something they could have changed and done from the better from the original. Dastardly and Muttley were always comic relief villains during the wacky races, and you had a chance to introduce an entire generation of kids to these characters. Why not make him more intimidating? It's not like you've had a problem with changing how things work up to this point, so why not make an improvement? He only gets far because of how incompetent the heroes are in the film. Now we have the Mystery Gang, who are the supposed focus of the film. Fred, Velma, and Daphne are played by Zac Efron, Gina Rodriguez, and Amanda Seyfried. You have good actors playing these iconic roles, and what do you give them to do?
Nothing.
Seriously, they do almost nothing in the film. They barely contribute to the overall plot and are just here to fill the Scooby Doo quota. And they don't even do that. The movie randomly will cut to them for 5 minutes and then forget they exist. Why even include them? There have been plenty of series that only focused on Shaggy and Scooby, like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo and Shaggy and Scooby Doo Get a Clue. They also never really use their catchphrases. I know it sounds like a nitpick, but it actually means a lot. Velma says jinkies like once, I think Daphne said jeepers offhandedly, Fred never says let's split up gang, and Velma never loses her glasses? That's in like every episode of this series. Why would you leave that out? But when they're on screen, it's at least tolerable. Especially Zac Efron as Fred. He has all of the funny moments. Long story short, the gang really feels like they were there only to dump exposition and retread what we already knew. The story starts with them trying to figure out who the villain is, when we've already seen him. Whenever they're on screen in those early parts, I just want to yell,
Stop wasting time!
And now we have our two main characters, Norville Shaggy Rogers and Scooby Doo, played by Will Forte and Frank Welker. I'll just come out and say this right now, I think Will Forte's Shaggy voice was absolutely awful. He was way too screechy and downright annoying. I love Will Forte, I think he's really funny. But for some reason, he was just not fitting at all. He sounds like they took a random dude off the street and asked him to do a Shaggy impression. And this is putting aside my bias and giving him a real chance. To me, it all fell apart when he had to give a hero speech towards the end. It sounded like a grown man pretending to be a high schooler.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Also, Scooby talks way too much in this film. Like, maybe my memory is lacking, but I never remembered Scooby talking this much. And when he did, it was never in full sentences. There's this stupid breakup point for the both of them, and just wow, I did not give a single crap about any of this. Nostalgia for seeing a character isn't enough to carry an entire movie. There are other elements you need, a strong emotional core to the characters being one of them. They tried to do this with Scooby and Shaggy, but the film forgets that. Whenever we have these moments trying to be emotional, it just doesn't feel justified or earned at all. There are no stakes whatsoever and no sense of actual danger. Just a very poor representation of how these characters should be. We see glimmers here and there of who they are, but it gets overshadowed by all the other BS going on. And all the random dumb characters they added in for no reason, like Captain Caveman. Yes, he is here for no reason. At least we can rest easy knowing the character design and animation was good. The character designs for the most part look pretty good. I think they fit the aesthetic and really get the essence of the characters down very well. The main cast look fine, but the other background characters and extras look weird. It's like they're too cartoony to be real and too realistic to be cartoony. Just giving me Uncanny Valley vibes the entire time. Everyone also just looks like they're made out of rubber, like they have no texture to them. The animation itself is also lacking. While not everything is herky-jerky, a lot of this isn't as smooth as it should be. Nobody moves naturally either, and it took me a long time to figure out why. And after scouring the internet, I found out I wasn't alone. From my and the internet's best guess, there are two main issues. There aren't any real outlines on the characters, which itself wouldn't be too bad in my opinion. I think relying on the lighting and the shading to make the characters stand out is a fine choice if done right. I think Peanuts is a good example of how they do this. But it's a bigger problem when you add the second issue. There isn't any motion blur when the characters move. It just makes everything look unnatural and feels like they're moving too fast. While I adjusted to this, it doesn't take away from the strange feeling you have when you're watching. Even the original cartoon had motion blur, and that was Mr. Krabs level cheap.
Hey, I ain't cheap! Now take this tomato back to the kitchen before it spoils.
This movie is bad. It is a special kind of bad. It represents everything wrong with the shared universe model that Marvel started, and to me is just the worst example of it. You have to take your time when planting the seeds and building up characters for a universe of films. When Marvel made Iron Man, they didn't just shove any obscure character into the movie for no reason. They made references, but but nothing more than that. It stayed focused on being a good, solid, standalone story. This film, on the other hand, said, screw that, we're just going to throw every character we can onto the screen and see what sticks. We don't care if you've never heard of them or how they fit into the story, it doesn't matter. At least with the Tom Cruise Mummy, for the most part, they made visual references. A monster hand there, a monster head the other side. Come on. And even the only other monster they have in the movie has a purpose outside of just sequel begging. This movie made me so angry because of what it could have been and what they showed. Nothing is worse than something that has limitless potential and squanders it all for the sake of mediocrity. Why didn't you just make a movie focused on Scooby Doo, and if you wanted to add the other characters in, have it make sense? Why did you not do what Mystery Incorporated did? Have a multiverse story that takes all the varied versions of Scooby over the years to stop a massive threat? How about you have all the Scooby Doo ripoff characters like Fangface, the Funky Phantom, Speed Buggy, and the Bloofer Files, or hell, even the damn shark that solved mysteries, Jabberjaw. You put all reference to him in during the end credits. Use your concept wisely. You could have done anything in the world, but instead you settled on one of the blandest, most cliche movies ever. This is basically a backdoor Blue Falcon pilot with Scooby Doo guest starring in his own damn movie. I'm not going to give it a pass because it's a kid's movie. It still baffles me they thought this was good enough to put into theaters. If it was on Netflix, sure, I would have no problem. But no, you made me pay money for this bullshit. Scoob gets a 2 out of 10 and is the first to be awarded the coveted crown of crap. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you liked what you saw, and of course, share, subscribe, and comment what I should review next.